Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're having a good day, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is on your side. I will be reading a few poems and later on perhaps having some guests with me, and hopefully we will have a good time all together tonight. Um, those are poems that you probably already heard of if you are a regular from this channel. Otherwise, I hope that you will enjoy it. The first poem that I will be reading is a poem I wrote for my birthday a few years back. Um, it's called Hellish Birthday. So, time unravels as burning candles. As my eyes are shut, the moment passes, reminding me of full hourglasses when grains of sand were easy to handle. In the darkness, it lights the path ahead, taking me further than I could have been led. I opened my eyes, and halfway through, a song broke the silence as my breath blew. The older I get, the more candles burn. For each of them I look into the past, to days in which everything was to yearn. The world was a playground and very vast. With each grain of sand comes a memory. And soon I, myself, am the piling sand. And the memory becomes reverie. Light as the lifeline from my poem's hand soon vanishes. And the songs slowly cease, leaving me a strange sensation of peace. So, as a few commentary, it's obviously a birthday song, birthday poem. The first stanza is mainly about the perception of time, how time goes forward, like, what do you call that? The entropy of time, basically. How nothing goes backward, but everything goes forward. And I try to represent that as a burning candle, in the sense that a candle that burns won't, you know, grow back. So that's what I meant by time unravels as a burning candles. As my eyes are shut and the moment passes, well, that's pretty obvious. It's somebody that shuts his eyes, prepares to blow on the candle, and the moment passes because there is an inevitability to time passing, the passage of time. It keeps going, always forward. And there I go back to reminding me of full hourglasses when grains of sand were easy to handle. And basically, what I'm doing here is I'm using a component, a metaphor, which is the hourglasses, to represent time. And I'm being reminded of times when basically I was a child and I could, play with sand. I could make castles, create stuff. The second stanza starts with, in the darkness it lights the path ahead, taking me further than I could have been led. Again, going back to the candle. The candle allows me to lead myself in the darkness. So, and that's what I wanted to represent, the idea that the passage of time goes on and goes always further and keeps going, but at the same time, the more you advance, the more you realize that passage of time, that the future is getting closer, and that's where you're going. And it's always better to actually know where you're going. Thus, the candle, like hold a candle, keep on advancing. And the next stanza, I open my eyes and it's halfway through. A song broke the silence as my breath blew. So that's basically a representation of, again, the passage of time. It's the guy is not. I'm not starting to walk. I'm not at the end of the walk. I open my eyes and I discover that I'm halfway through. I'm not in the beginning, I'm not in the end, I'm there in the middle. And suddenly a song breaks the silence, just as my breath blows on that candle, representing the very end of a year of the passage of time. The older I get, the more candle burns. Well, that's pretty much a fact. I mean, if you get a birthday cake, you've got all your little candles, and every year that goes by, you get one more candle. Obviously, some will stop counting them after a while. I mean, even I have stopped counting them. Could you imagine me putting 38 candles on a cake? I mean, nobody would even have the patience of putting 38 candles on a cake. For that price, they would take two candles, one that says 3, one that says 8. They'll put them together and pretend that, you know, I have to blow on 38 fucking candles. Which obviously is not the same as blowing on 2 candles. Then I described the, the memory. Like for each of them, I look into the past, to days in which everything was to yearn. So basically, every candle is representing a year of my past, and I'm looking at them, and I'm blowing on them. Like my breath is blowing, and as I blow and I turn off, I extinguish all those candles. Literally, years are being extinguished, and yet I remember them. The world was a playground, and very vast. So again, referencing, that innocence of the youth, that idea that when we're young we can do anything we've set our mind up. And obviously, I mean, most humans believe in themselves. It's like a normal factor. Who wouldn't believe in themselves? The only way a person doesn't believe in themselves is if they've been groomed to not believe in themselves. If their parent actively told them not to believe in themselves. Okay, give me 1 second, guys. I am receiving a phone call. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna have to have a tiny break. I'll be back in a few instants. I hope you guys don't mind. It's just 5 minute breaks. My mom is coming by and dropping something out. And hope to talk to you. Well, just wait for me. Bye bye. I'm back. So, as I was saying, to go back to the poem I'm reading, Hellish Birthday. So I was on the. I'll make a quick reading again, just to get back into the mood of it. Hellish Birthday. Time unravels as a burning candle. As my eyes are shut, the moment passes, reminding me of full hourglasses when grains of sands were easy to handle. In the darkness, it lights the path ahead, taking me further than I could have been led. I open my eyes and it's halfway through. A song broke the silence as my breath blew. The older I get, the more candles burn. For each of them, I look into the past, to days in which everything was to yearn. The world was a playground and very vast. With each grain of sand comes a memory, and soon I myself am the piling sand, and the memory becomes reverie. Light as the lifeline from my poem's hand soon vanishes, and the songs slowly cease, leaving me a strange sensation of peace. So as I was saying, I think in the stances of, for each of them, I look into the past, to days in which everything was to yearn and the world was a playground. And I described it as that perception of youth, watching the past and thinking about it, and how can I explain this? Okay, so for example, when I was a kid, a young man, reaching adulthood, not yet an adult, but reaching it, there was nothing to stop me. The only thing that stopped me was literally my moral construction, my own etiquette, and perhaps my desire to make my parents proud of me. But other than that, my only goal was making myself proud of myself. Well, it basically was. It wasn't even about gain or money or recognition. It was about proving that I could do anything I want. And obviously, well, perhaps not that obviously, but this is something that after a while, as we grow, we find out that it becomes less and less of a truth and more of an old memory. And that's where I'm going in this poem, in which that person, it's his birthday, he blows the candles, looks into the past, and remember his own dreams, his own desire to achieve something, to get somewhere. The world was a playground and very vast. There was no limit to the playground. Yeah. And with that, I get to the next stanza, which is, with each grain of sand comes a memory, and soon I myself am the piling sand, and the memory becomes reverie. So that's pretty explanatory in the sense that each grain of sand is supposed to represent a memory. I'm going back to this idea of the hourglass. And the hourglass, well, the little sand is going down and making a little pile. And that's how I perceive it. The grains of sand are memories. And if the grains of sand are memories of the past, then I am the construct of all those memories. I am defined by that. And that's when really memory becomes reverie, because at one point you're remembering something, and at the next one you're contemplating what you are, what has been done since then, and what has defined you as a person. Light as the lifeline from my palm's hand soon vanishes and the songs slowly cease, leaving me a strange sensation of peace. That's the last stanza, and it's supposed to represent this concept that, you know, life has an end. You can't put 200, 300, 400 candles on a cake, you know, it's not gonna happen. You'll reach a certain age and then you'll pass and the cycle go on. So I try to represent that in the same concept, you know, like the candles of the cakes are burning out, and at the same time that lifeline that I have, that everybody has in their hand, is basically coming to an end. It vanishes. And at the same time, with all of that, comes the extreme case that even pleasure disappears with old age. One doesn't focus anymore in what is fun, what is achievable, what is conquerable, what I could become, what I could do to change the world. But one focuses instead on the memories of the past and trying to really indeed understand where we stand when there is no direction to go, and the past itself is just memories. So this is one of my favorite poems for its meaning, you know, like in the sense that I think that's when I wrote that poem I truly started to understanding that basically I wasn't just my dreams. I was a man, no, not even a man. I was something contemplating being a man, dreaming to be a man. Yeah. Because the past is gone. The candles have burned, you know. So everything that's gone isn't anymore. And something that isn't cannot define something that is. Although perhaps, you know, Alan Watts would disagree with me, he would probably argue something in the range of you cannot have the opposite without each other, and in that sense I do agree with him. But my darker side, my side that's about nihilism and pessimism and stoicism, tends to push me to this idea that truly we go into decay. And not like literal decay, but from the moment we start life, we grow. And then people tend to believe that there is like this golden age. You reach an age and you will be this important, and that will be so meaningful because you will be the top of what you have done. But the truth is, in the end, it's not. It's never like that. Nobody gets to the top, and nobody realizes that they got to a good place even when they are in a good place. They only notice that they were in a good place when they get out of that place, and there is no top. There is just going forward. Eventually, that forward stops for us as an individual, but it keeps going for everybody else. And even if there was nobody else left in this world, it would still keep going. So yeah, I guess yes, I have one side of me that believes that truly one has to enjoy every instant of life. Every memory, every grain of sand is really fucking important, because if you do not enjoy life, one of those days you'll end up having a shit ton of regret. And not because you haven't done anything, but because you won't have anything to compensate from the trashy life that life is. Bad things are gonna happen. Bad things happen to everybody. That's a fact. You know, like people that pretend that bad things don't happen to them because they're good people are bullshitters. The truth is, everybody is gonna have something bad happening to them in their lifetime. And somehow, I think it's important to realize that, to understand that bad things are gonna happen, we're never gonna reach the top. We'll, we might, if we are lucky, reach, well, achieve what we want to achieve. But there is no golden age, no, there is no better age than another. I wasn't better off when I was 20 than I am now. I was just younger and having a different life. Heck, I would argue that I was a different person, literally. I thought differently. I had a different lifestyle, different favorite books, different girlfriends. The only few things that haven't changed is that I am me and my mom, for example, is her. But even that has a clock, a timer on itself. A timer that we don't understand, that we don't comprehend fully, but yet a timer above our head, clicking, ticking. It goes tick, tack, tick, tack, tick, tack. Literally reminds me of the crocodile in Captain Hook. Metaphorically speaking, I would say that it's pretty much the same. I mean, the crocodile in Peter Pan is supposed to mean the death. Death is coming for Captain Hook, who is a grown-up. And the crocodile is the time itself by having eaten time. Yeah, I guess I actually never realized that Peter Pan somehow spoke of some form of cannibalism. I mean, if you think about it, in Peter Pan, the the crocodile is anthropomorphized. It's almost someone. It's almost a character. And time, somehow, in Peter Pan, is also anthropomorphized. Not in the sense that it's present, like constantly like a character, but more in the well, and actually I would argue that yes, it is, because Peter Pan is the symbol of eternal youth, but rather in the sense that in Neverland, eternity lasts forever, people don't grow old. It's a sort of bubble outside of time, time by itself, a time within time. Yeah. So, my next poem. My next poem. So, as most of you probably know already, I'm a fire survivor, which is pretty shitty thing to say or to admit. And yeah, let's just say that I've seen things that people shouldn't see. And I wrote a little poem about it. Obviously, I don't expect anybody to truly comprehend my emotions towards surviving a fire, but I figured I could write a poem that perhaps gives a taste of how I feel. And if it does not, you know, if it does not allow me to share my own emotions, and you guys find some kind of meaning behind it, well, I think that's great. It's all the better off, because the truth is, poetry is not meant to be understood. It's merely meant to just be. So, yeah. Hellish nightmare. As the incendiary tongues reaches me, burning flame turns all my past to ashes. Sparking from a hellish hole as flashes, it lives on devouring all memory. Soon the air is fiery smoldering smoke, and the fumes are so warm it burns it all. It turns my eyesight grey until I choke. My breath strangled by lack of air, I fall. As slowly as I lose all cognitions, I see turn to ashes all providence. Torching all, fire takes life of its own, and soon it flourishes and is whole grown. It licks my skin, burns my hair, turns me blind, goes to my soul till there's nothing to find. It leaves nothing but ruins and rubbles bright, till all that's left is fire in my sight, reminding me one last time of it all. The combustion grows all so very tall, that even lying down I lose my ground. Soon, with no air, there's not even a sound, my home and my mind became a furnace, and that ardent heat replaces my heart, as if myself of this house was the heart from which those flames came for my last embrace. Yeah, so this is a pretty complicated poem. Well, at least the way I see it. Well, for me, at the very least. Um, Let me see. How can I start this? Explaining what I perceive. So I'll read stanzas by stanza. That probably will be the easiest. So as the incendiary tongues reaches me, burning flames turn all my past to ashes. So obviously I'm talking about the fire itself. You know, it's it's making this analogy between incendiary tongues and the movement of the flames in the air. Like, basically, fire will take a life of its own when you're in the middle of it. It's complicated to explain, but because of the movement of oxygen and doors opening, closing, or whatever, fire crawls in little holes. Fires follow the air and will fucking hunt you down, you know. It sounds weird, but it's how fire lives. So there I'm talking about the fire that's trying to reach me, not me watching something, like me watching a fire, but actually that fire trying to embrace me. Yeah. I'm gonna need a second. Sorry, I didn't notice I was muted. So I come back. So the next stanza is sparking from a hellish hole as flashes it lives on devouring all memory, and that's what I'm talking about. We tend to see that fire burns materially or organically. It burns people, it burns a house. But we forget that what we see as an object, what I look and I see a phone, and this is my phone, and well, I don't value much phones, but for me this is meaningless. However, for some people, this may actually be the most important object they have. It may contain all the pictures they have of loved ones, people that are not yet there anymore, or are not there anymore, places they've been that they cannot reach anymore in their life, things like that. And truly, that's what fire does. Beyond burning material objects, beyond burning the organic form that we have, beyond destruction, it also erases literally the past from people. Because once you don't have an object to remember memories by, it's only a question of time before time itself erases your memory. So the next stanza, it turns my eyesight grey until I choke. My breath strangled by lack of air I fall. Well, basically, again, in this poem, I'm talking about what happens when you're in a fire. And I guess, the movies, they represent it badly because everybody thinks, oh, if somebody's in a fire, what will they see? They would see flames, they would see fire, they would see destruction. And it is part of what people see. But mostly, all of that is basically fogged. It's in a cloud of smoke, and mostly that's what people see. They see smoke and fire beyond burning, beyond that smoke, the silhouette of what's valuable to them. And that's what I'm talking in there, like literally it's not the eyesight that's going gray until the person chokes, it's the universe that becomes gray. And the universe itself manifests itself by choking the person that sees it, that sees that form of truth. The next stanza is, my breath strangled by lack of air I fall. As slowly as I lose all cognitions, I see turned to ashes all providence. And again, it's still in the same concept. It turns my eyesight grey until I choke. My breath strangled by lack of air I fall. As slowly as I lose all cognitions, I see turn to ashes all providence. So it's about this event in which you don't see what's going on. You lose sight of the past, of the present, of what's surrounding you. You choke on it. You're getting strangled by the lack of air, literally, because of the fire, and you feel like you're falling. That's a feeling I had in the fire, a feeling of falling, not like literally falling in a hole, like, oh, like 20 meters. No, like 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 a defeat. As slowly as I lose all cognitions, I see turn to ashes all providence. And again, that's what I'm talking about. If somebody loses grip with reality, and that's what fire and smoke will do. It will make you lose your past, your what you identify to, what defines you. well, you lose cognitions, and basically all providence, all hope, all that was meaningful become ashes. Torching all, fire takes life of its own. Fire takes life of its own, and soon it flourishes and is all grown. It licks my skin, burns my hair, turns me blind, goes to my soul till there's nothing to find. Well, pretty explanatory, you know. It's this person that witnesses everything that's being burned in front of him, and that understand that the fire is basically flourishing through that destruction, and it's growing through that destruction. And once it's grown, well, it acts. It's. I personally feel like it becomes almost like, to me, one of the thing that identifies adulthood is sexuality. Not in the sense that reproduction, or in the sense like carnal, like in real life, but in the sense that things become more intimate, more personal. And if it licks my skin, burns my hair, turns me blind, to me it's almost a definition of a lover, somebody that licks my skin, that, well, burns my hair obviously, but I'm talking about, like, play with my hair, even though the fire burns, and turns me blind. Well, yeah, of course, in love, when that relationship of sexuality in adulthood, there is a part of it that is actually about turning a blind eye on stuff. And the fire goes to my soul till there's nothing to find. Well, still, I guess I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm going from the the thought of the material plane being burned to the idea that the fire goes to the soul and rips and corrupts even the emotion of love, corrupts the emotion of everything that's personal and that's intimate, and turns it into nothingness. It leaves nothing but ruins and rubbles bright, till all that's left is fire in my sight. And to me that's an important part, because somehow I cannot see past certain events of my life. It takes active it's an active mental exercise for me to remember events that were, before the fire. It's like the fire became a wall that made a straight cut into my life. Everything before seems almost like a dream, and everything after it's like, it's not even the past or the future or the present. It's just a general sensation of a form of present lasting forever. And that's what I'm talking about. It leaves nothing but ruins and rubbles bright. You can't see a castle anymore. You can't see a palace. You can't see a house in the ruins and rubbles. Everything has been torched, so you cannot see it. It's gone. And yet, something else is imprinted in the ice. That something else is not the castle, is not the memory of the past, but it is the fire that torches it all. And that's something that happens to me quite often when I have panic attacks. I will be in the subway, in the bus, and people will start crowding the bus or the place around me, and I will have to focus on reality because I will have that feeling of having a filter right in front of my eyes. Like if you were putting a filter on on a picture, you know? But instead of being like red, blue, green, or whatever colors, I see flames. You know, I see a repetition of my past. And I think somehow in this poem it's reflected in the sense that those flashbacks are connected to what I see. And I try to present it as I see only fire with my eyes, but the truth is it has other implication. It's not about someone imagining going out and seeing fire burn everywhere. I mean, I'm not a pyromaniac. I'm a victim of a fire, and by that I mean that I get flashbacks. I don't get desire to burn anything, and yet that's what I see: the fucking fire. I do have to wonder, you know, sometimes. I've never spoken with a pyromaniac, like not as an adult at least, but I do have to wonder if people like that have the same issue I have. Do they see fire around them, and do they have to actively grab reality and hold it and forget that that filter is not, well, you know, remember that that filter is not a reality? Or do they just, well, I guess I don't even know. I can't speculate on why people that burn stuff do it. To me, it was too violent. I mean, I remember this old movie when I was a kid, in which I think it was with Brad Pitt, basically, who was about to get married with this chick, and she dies, and the house burns. No, and she dies, and he decides to burn the house and then leave, and he becomes like a sort of cowboy, in which I think it's Bandit or some bullshit like that. I think it was with Brad Pitt. Anyway, I might be wrong with the actors. I cannot imagine anybody doing that. Well, perhaps it's not the same situation though, but I cannot imagine anyone willing to destroy their own life, which massively affects the way people see things. And again, I would imagine that it affects the, you know, in my perspective, fire is a trauma, so I see it as something that's bad. I imagine that other people, if they see it as something pleasant, it's another mental process. Anyway, to go back to the poem, um, reminding me one last time of it all. The combustion grows, all so very tall, that even laying down I lose my ground. Well, yeah. What I'm trying to explain by that with that stance is that basically, as as a, as as the combustion grows, you know, as the fire keep growing, and as I lose myself in the smoke, and I try to fight it because, well, at that time I was trying to fight it, but in that poem I'm not explaining that. I'm just explaining a witnessing of it. It's it's that feeling. It's what I was talking about. It's that feeling of defeat, and it's not about falling down. You know, it's like that even laying down, I lose my ground. So you're not falling. It's just that the world is spinning around you. The world is being destroyed around you, and the world is spinning around you, and it does not make sense. Destruction absolutely does not make sense. I imagine that some people would make sense of it and rationalize it somehow, but to me it's the ultimate chaos. It has no reason to be. It has no consequence that I could imagine could make people grow in any way. Well, I guess somehow my mind has changed since then, but the truth is, I'm just, I'm not better off than I was before. And even if I understand some stuff that I wouldn't have understood before, I would not wish that understanding on anyone else. Not because I'm capricious with what I own, but because some things are not worth knowledge. It's not worth sh- somebody's some knowledge are not worth knowing. Some experience are not worth experiencing, which is fucking insane to say because as a young man I remember telling myself I wish I could experience everything just to experience it once, because life is about experience. And I guess, to link it back to the poem I read before, this is something important in the sense that the more we grow, the more we understand that the world is more than just what we love and more than what is we are and more than all of that. And at the same time, well, it just goes beyond us. It goes beyond us. Yeah. But perhaps that beyond is I don't know, like the way I see it, for me, okay, I never was a big believer in any doctrine or religion or anything like that. So I have a really hard time understanding that. But the way I see it, it's like trying to understand a secret that's not meant to be understood, and that really can't be reached, you know. And even if you reached it, basically it would mean your own destruction. So the very knowledge of it is worthless. The price is too heavy for the wisdom that you acquire through it, which is too fucking bad because the truth is the world should be harmonious. It should be balanced. It should be you pay something, you get something. You hurt someone, you get punished. Some shit like that. But it's not. Things happen, and that's how it is. So, soon with no air, there's not even a sound. My home and my mind become a furnace, and that ardent heat replaces my heart, as if myself of this house was the heart from which those flame came for my last embrace. So there I'm making an analogy. The idea is that if my home and my mind are burning up, and that's it, they're on fire forever in my head, not in reality, but in my head, it will always be the case. My home is on fire, my head is on fire, and the ardent, the hot heat is replacing my heart, my beating heart, as if I was the origin of that fire, not because I provoke it, but because I feel it so much, because it starts to define me. And one has to wonder, does experience provokes a form of strange wisdom in which one has to recognize that we hurt ourselves, not because we do it, like physically in the material world, but because we think it. And I do believe that. I do strongly believe that most people that go through very hard things will regret those hard things, will feel ashamed of them or responsible for them, even if it was beyond the the capacity to stop it, or to or out of their hands, or beyond their responsibility, or anything like that. So something that's beyond you, basically. I, I personally think it's always so strange when somebody says, "Ah, if he doesn't have anything to hide, well, to hide, he wouldn't have, if he hadn't done anything, he wouldn't have to blame himself." This is the same shit they say to people that, get mugged or get shot by cops or stuff like that. If he didn't have any, or even, to go on darker past, people that get raped. Oh yeah, she provoked it. He provoked the cop to shoot him. But that's not how it is. And the truth is, whatever the event, a victim always has some kind of of shame towards that event, in the sense that they have to work it out. It's a mental process. A person has to think it, reason it, understand why something that is meaningless has happened. It's obviously a question that can never be answered. An interesting question, because to me it's a provoking question that makes us wonder about the nature of reality, and the nature of our society, and the nature of life, and the nature of God, really. The nature of everything, basically. Well, that was the last stanza of this poem. I'll read you another poem that I wrote. This one is a little bit more cheerful, so I hope you'll enjoy it. Just give me an instant. Yeah, there you go. So, to goodness. If the past doesn't exist anymore, and the hereafter hasn't come to be yet, the present will be everything, therefore, and everything could always be reset. It matters not to follow everyone, nor to compete to beat everyone else. It matters not that one has lost or won. It matters not that one has lost or won. All that matters is to help those in distress. There is no being better or normal, no such thing as always acting formal. There is only helping without bias, even if anyone else defies us. There isn't apologies or thankfulness that could replace fair acts towards others. When all around there is no more kindness, help others by doing for them wonders. Wonders will always be what is needed. It won't be what is vainly desired. It will be simple acts that once seeded will grow into what's really required. Yet, one has to do, and not just observe, or even worse, to simply ignore it. Even then, praising should not be deserved, as one should never be a misfit. But it isn't that there is no heroics. It It isn't that there are no heroics, but no one should ever be in distress. I would rather be completely stoic and have all receiving human progress. So this is an ode to goodness. Read the first tense again. If the past doesn't exist anymore, and the hereafter has not come to be yet, the present would be everything therefore, and everything could always be reset. Yeah. So let me explain this. If the past, everything that's gone, doesn't exist. Well, that's obvious, the past doesn't exist. It's not a material thing, it's an abstract idea. We understand it because we live it. But try to explain the past to somebody that has no concept of time and it becomes really hard. Well, you could explain, past. You could perhaps explain some things, but it will be pretty hard. That said, basically the past is an abstract concept. It has happened, it just doesn't exist anymore. And the hereafter, well, what am I talking about the hereafter? The hereafter in this poem is a reference to the future. The future hasn't come to be yet. So, the past doesn't exist because it's gone. The future doesn't exist because it hasn't come yet. The present will be everything therefore. Okay. So there I'm making a simple mathematical claim, a simple logic game. I'm stating three factors. The first one, past doesn't exist. Next one, future doesn't exist. Third one, well, if past and present don't exist, the only answer that's left, through deduction, is the present. What does that mean? If you only have the present to live for. Well, if you only have the present to live for, you can reset everything. You don't have to live by a set of rules and codes and hey, crazy, I love you, brother. So happy that you're here. You should join me in the chat, dude. I could totally use some, cheering up. I know I'm kind of busy reading a poem, but I fucking love having you around. So I'm just gonna finish explaining this quickly. So I present that idea. The past doesn't exist, the future doesn't exist, the present is all that matters, and you can reset at all time the present because you don't have to live by a set of rules and you don't have to achieve a goal. If the future doesn't exist, then you're not trying to reach a goal, you're just being. But perhaps that's what people like Alan Watts and some theorists, meant. Don't look back at the past. Don't have too many regrets. Don't look at problems you don't have yet. Look at the present, and by that present, define yourself. Stop, like. Obviously, we should be proud of things we've done in our past, and sometimes we should even be sad about things that happened to our past or stuff like that. But we can also admit that all that has become abstract, and that really the only thing that truly matters is the present. And basically, that means that we can redefine ourselves every day, every instant, every moment. All we have to do is just get into it and redefine ourselves. And perhaps that's the very the very reason of this cycle of life, in which we have like this destruction, reconstruction, destruction, reconstruction. Perhaps that's it. The reason of this is so we learn to focus on the present. We learn to focus on the only thing that exists, the only thing that's real, the only thing that should matter, which is us at the present moment, and not us in the past or us in the future. And so the next stanza of the poem is, "It matters not to follow everyone, nor to compete to beat everyone else. It matters not that one has lost or won. All that matters is to help those in distress." And there I'm bringing up a new idea in this poem. So the first idea was the past doesn't exist, the future doesn't exist, the present is the only thing that defines us. But within that present, we have to understand that it's not meaningful to follow blindly someone. Neither is it meaningful to be the best at something without caring to share that knowledge or that ability or anything like that. The actual meaningful thing is to ensure that not only a person is feeling alright at the present moment, but also that the people around them, and not just, like the inner circle, but everything that forms that environment in which we live. And I mean the grand environment. I don't mean just like the 100 meters on each direction I can look at. If the environment in which I live in is good, then even if I'm sad, even if I'm hurt, I can still look at good things and remember there is goodness in this world. And that's a trick that I actually use quite a lot, because quite often I'll find myself thinking about really dark thoughts. And while I think about dark thoughts, I forget that people can be happy, that people have family, kids, that people have friends, that people have a house, savings for the old days, that people aren't sick. I forget that there is things like that. Obviously, there is the opposite too. But it is important to remember it. And the only way to remember that those things exist is to go out and look at them. Because ultimately, people will tell you, you have to have faith. That's an advice I've always received, like since the fire started, people have been telling me, have faith in the system, have faith in the law, have faith in the judge, have faith in the lawyers, have faith in blah, 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 blah. But it's not about faith. Not in this case. It's about witnessing the truth and understanding. It's about revelation, basically. It's about being in a place so dark that you cannot see the light unless you see it. And no matter what other people will tell you, it's like if you're in a dark room and then somebody comes to you and tells you, yeah, don't worry, just behind that door, it's full bright light and all that. Does it matter to you? Does it matter that beyond the door there is light while you're inside a box where there is no light? If you don't know what light is, you probably wouldn't even understand it. However, if a person goes in the box, takes you out of the box and brings you to the light and makes you see the light, not tells you about it, then it changes everything. As an individual can see the light by himself, but he cannot be guided to the light. Well, not guided. I mean, he cannot be told about the light, and then we pretend that he was told, thus he has to admit the reality of it. No, he has to see it. That's what I mean. We can't just tell somebody the sky is blue if that person has never seen the sky or has only seen the sky at night. We could, but then we shouldn't expect that person to believe us. And that's where I'm going in that stanza. It matters not to follow everyone, nor to compete to beat everyone else. It matters not that one has lost or won. All that matters is to help those in distress. Because ultimately that's the point. You know, I personally couldn't count all of my victories and all of my worst defeats. I could remember some of my worst defeats and probably make a list of them, like uh, I guess the fire, the time I had both my lungs puncture, some other minor health stuff, but it will be an active process, mental process. And the same goes for happiness, it will be a mental process for me to remember all the good things. It doesn't come back by itself, sometimes something will remind me of an event and I will start thinking about it. But I need that something to help me remember it. If I'm if I'm actually convinced that if from one day to the other I was taken from my environment, dropped to an island, left there for 10 years, I'd probably come to doubt that my life before the island even existed. Because eventually one just adapts to the environment, and if the adaptation to the new environment requires us to lie to ourselves and be like, okay, this never happened, we will do it. It's something that human beings do, you know. They deny their own reality just so they can keep going. It's because we are resilient. It's actually a quality. It's what makes us keep going whatever happens. But it's a dangerous thing too. So the next stanza is: there is no being better or normal, no such thing as always acting formal. There is only helping without bias, even if anyone else defies us. Well, there I'm just stating something simple, that people have this ambition of being better than others. But it's a ridiculous ambition, because there is not no being better than others. People are not better than others. We do better things sometimes. We take better actions. We think about better ideas sometimes. We might be able to play better than another guy because we practiced more, or we might be able to run faster, or to do more exercise or something, but only because we practice. It's not like I'm better because I'm born better than another person. That is not the idea. I mean, there is probably a shit ton of people that think that believe deeply inside of them that they just better than everybody else. And I can understand that too. I mean, it's not a hard chain of thought. I would even argue it's a fucking simple idea. It's a simplistic idea. It's the kind of thought that a child of 4 years would have. I exist, but when I close my eyes, when I shut my eyes, the world doesn't exist, so the world doesn't see me. Yet, yeah, I understand that too, but the world still sees the kid. So being better, well, all we could do is try to do something better than somebody else, or perhaps um, think of an idea that's better than somebody else, or stuff like that. But being better by itself, it's an abstract idea. And the same goes for normal. There is no being better or normal. There is no normality. We try to appear as normal because we want to be part of a community, and being part of a community means that we have to share some of, either character traits, physical traits, cultural traits, some moral behavior, some kind of identity that defines us. But ultimately, it's again an abstract idea. I guess I could say there is no more normal than I am if I take myself as a reference, but let's be totally fucking honest, I'm a weird ass motherfucker, so I'm not, if I'm not the norm, what is supposed to be the norm? And I don't mean if I in the I, but I mean the I, like if every one of us is not normal, then who is normal? If everyone as a singular individual is not normal. It's a game, it's an abstract idea. There is no being better or normal, no such thing as always acting formal. No, there isn't. People can act formal for so long only. Yeah, because we're not machines. We take decisions, we act as human beings. Sometimes we will be awkward, sometimes we will be normal, sometimes we will do the better things, sometimes we will be the better person, but it won't be systematically. It has to be like an active decision to do that. There is only helping without bias, even if anyone else defies us. And that's where we enter into concrete ideas. If you help somebody without bias, without looking at his gender, her gender, her color of skin, religion, doctrine, political agenda, whatever, all those things, and you help someone, you're doing more than just helping someone as an exchange. What you're doing is you are proving that compassion exists without the need of reward. And that is the greatest thing ever. I mean, I'm not a very religious person myself. I don't believe in. I don't have a confession to any religious organized religion, but there is some truth in goodness being goodness when it has no agenda. If I help an old lady that's trying to cross the street without me expecting her to give me a buck or telling me thanks or anything like that, that is a good deed. Of course, I would argue that allowing someone to thank you is also a good deed. So, sometimes you have to let people tell you thank you, so accept their thanks. But the other concept would be to help someone just because you're gonna get paid. And in that argument, I would say it's not helping someone. You're actually working. If you're gonna get paid, if you're gonna get a reward for what you're doing, it's not something that comes from the heart. It's not a decision that you do just because you want to do the right thing. You're doing it because you want the reward. So, in my concept, take away the reward and look what happens. If people are good, they will act good. They won't need a reward. If people are bad, well, shit. Perhaps taking away the reward makes it easier to point out who is bad. And in that case, I would say it might actually be more interesting, because in this world it could be quite useful to know who is a motherfucker when they say they're not. And, again, that's where I'm going. There is only helping without bias, even if anyone else defies us. People will defy you not because you're doing the wrong thing. They will defy us, well, they will defy you because you're doing the right thing and they are not doing it. And that's the thing, that's a massive reality of this world. If a person decides to do the right thing and looks around and expects everybody else to follow them, it's not gonna happen. What most probably will happen is that that person will get stoned, and then people will keep doing what they were doing. There is a danger into actually being a revolutionary mind, and in that sense, one has to be aware of it. But at the same time, if you're aware of it, if you are aware of the danger of it, it only amplifies that moment when you're helping someone. So if you're helping someone with no reward and with the knowledge that perhaps you will have 100% defy you because you've helped someone, most probably you did a good deed, you know? And that's what I'm trying to define here. There isn't apologies or thankfulness that could replace fair acts towards others. And that's the truth, you know? Uh, like, if I came to somebody and said, I'm sorry, I. I don't know, let's take something bad. I don't want to say I burned your house because it's too fucking personal, but I don't know, like, I destroyed your belongings. I'm sorry I destroyed your belongings. Does it matter? Does it change anything to the reality of the fact that something has been destroyed? Now, if I go to someone and let's say their car is destroyed and I allow them to use my car until they get a new car, but I expect, thankfulness. I expect to be thanked on a material level, let's say. That is not being good, you know. And it does not replace a good deed. That is just again, using the simple concept of I'm working. And the problem with that is most people that will require help are usually people that are in precarious situation, which means that if somebody comes to somebody else, that somebody that's in a precarious situation, and tells them, listen, I'm gonna give you, hey Seji, Kanetari, I hope you're having a good evening. I'm talking a little bit of both poems I wrote. So what I was saying is, being thanked and being apologetical, being thankful and being receiving the thankfulness of somebody and or saying apologies, like I'm sorry, does not replace a fair act. A fair act is just doing something right. So the next stanza. When all around there is no more kindness, when all around there is no more kindness, help others by doing for them wonders. Wonders will always be what is needed. It won't be what is vainly desired. And that's something that most people forget, and it's normal that we forget it because mostly when we give something to someone, we just figure we'll give them something that's nice, like, I don't know, and let's say an object, like a book. I'll give them a book. Okay, a book is nice. But the thing is, if you're in front of somebody that really requires help, a book might actually not be the best gift. Actually, the best gift might be a meal, a hot meal, like, or might be something that's unachievable for someone. Because again, we forget that people in precarious situation usually tend to not get the normal things that we assume everybody does get. And when a person receives what we consider as normal, and that something that they never got because it's abnormal for them, obviously they're gonna be thankful for that. There is a logic to it, you know, and that's what I'm talking about in this poem. It's not about giving random stuff and feeling good because I gave some random thing to somebody. It's giving what I have to give that somebody else doesn't have, and knowing that perhaps for me it's meaningless, but understanding that for this person it can be so much more meaningful. You know, like let's say something else. I live in a country where education is free. So let's say I gave the opportunity to education on that level to a kid that was born in a country where education is not free as here. Uh, that is actually a good deed. It's a miracle. It's a wonder. You know, it's something really meaningful. But on the other hand, if instead of doing that I send him $100 a year and I pretend to have a good consciousness because I gave $100 to some kid in China or some other country. So, sorry, I shouldn't be naming countries, but you see my point. If I give money to some kid on the other side of the world that I'm never gonna see, am I really making a meaningful difference? Isn't it more meaningful to give him what I consider normal? Like what is normal for me? Well, an education. Or what is normal for me? Having a meal every day. Well, let's give him that normality, that stability that may actually push him forward. Obviously, some people will argue, oh yeah, but $100 in some countries is enough to live 4 years. But I gave a random number. I meant probably less, because who the fuck give $100 to anybody in this world? I mean, people do, but it's a hard world. We usually tend to choose what we give to who. We don't just send $100 on the other side of the world, not of my knowledge, except if the people have a lot of money, which, again, I would argue it's not a sacrifice. But at the same time, it's not about the sacrifice, it's about bringing normality to someone that doesn't know that normality. Anyway, sorry, I went on a ramble on that. It won't be what is vainly desired. So wait. When all around there is no more kindness. No more kindness. Help others by doing for them wonders. Wonders will always be what is needed. It won't be what is vainly desired. It will be simple acts that once seeded will grow into what's really required. Yeah. And that's what I mean, if you give a kid education, it's much better than sending him just some money and leaving him to rot in some other country. But, obviously it's not exactly how the world works. What I mean to say is basically, if you teach a man how to fish, it's better than give him a fish a day. Yet one has to do and not just observe, or even worse, is to simply ignore it. Even then, praising should not be deserved, as no one should ever be a misfit. And that's where I'm going. People, we can understand all those ideas, but it's not enough to understand it. It's not enough to just watch people being hurt and knowing that they're being hurt, or watching people being victorious and knowing that they're victorious. It's not enough. And it's certainly even worse to ignore that all of that exists in this world. And that to me explains why praising should not be deserved. Because if observing is not enough, and if ignoring is bad, well, the truth is that what should be the norm is everybody helping everybody. That's what should be the norm. And praising something that's normal is making it a joke. I mean, imagine if I praised somebody for going to sleep every night. I'm making sleep abnormal by praising it. And I don't think it works. I think something have to be accepted for what they are. Just accept it, not be praised, not be demolished. Just this is how it is. Yeah. Particularly when we consider that in this world nobody should be a misfit. I mean, I understand people have a great sense of nationalism, have a great sense of religion, have a great sense of personal value, but it does not justify anybody being a misfit, ever. The only thing that could justify being a misfit is, I don't know, being a murderous bastard or some shit like that. Chains of thoughts, abstract concepts, and stuff like that should definitely not have such a consequence that we become misfit. I'm personally am always shocked at how people find it is normal to have homeless people in the street. It is not normal that in our societies, in modern times, we have people that have lost everything and live in the street. It is not normal that there are women living in the street right now that may be even younger than 18, or not normal that mothers with kids live in the street. And even if it was a man, it would still not be normal. And it's a failure. A failure of, obviously we could, point the finger at some politician, but the truth is it's a failure as a society to not see that we need to be together in this and not to each his own. I mean, being a misfit should not exist because being above everyone should not exist either. I'm not talking of money. I'm not making an ode to communism. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about having what you require to make sure that you can achieve the ambitions you have, or that at least you have a shot at that ambition. And that is not what we have nowadays. There is plenty of people that don't have even the possibility to engage into something they ambitious for. It isn't that there are no heroics, but no one should ever be in distress. I would rather be completely stoic and have all receiving human progress. That's the last stanza. And to me, it's a complicated stanza because I personally find it sounds awful. Like that last stanza sounds, to the ear, it does not sound good. At the same time, it does reaffirm the whole argument. There is no past, there is no future, there is only the present. It doesn't matter if we follow or if we lead. It doesn't matter if we compete or if we try to beat other people. It doesn't matter if we win or if we lose. It doesn't matter if we act formal or if we are normal. It doesn't matter that we pretend to be better or we pretend to be worse. In the end, what's left? Well, just being kind to each other. And being kind to each other is not a heroic deed. It's something that should be in the norm. It's something that people should do for each other. Uh, what I mean also by that is, if that was the norm, then true heroics has a chance to appear. Because if I'm gonna say to somebody, "Oh, bravo, you gave $1 to that poor old lady in the corner. From now on, I will consider you as a saint. You will be the best man I've ever known because you gave $1." Well, what am I going to say when somebody actually makes a massive difference? When somebody actually does something heroic? And heroics exist. And because people in distress exist. If there weren't people in distress, there would be no heroic deeds. So personally, at least on a personal level, I'd consider gladly, specifically after having survived a fire, a life of stoicism if everyone could even have a shot at daydreams by the age of 18. You know that by the age of 18 they had a good youth, no violence, food, education. They reach that age and they actually have a shot to either study or work. Fuck it. I mean, yeah, I'm ready to live with nothing if everybody else is able to have a happy life. Yeah, yeah, with no hesitation. Anyway, I'm gonna take a 5 minute breaks because all that reading and all that explaining was pretty hard. I do hope you enjoyed this stream, and I will be back pretty soon. Ah, boy. Well, I think actually this will be it for tonight. It was really fun having a conversation with all of you guys. I hope you enjoyed this stream and the poems I read and explained. Um, I did have a good time with all of you guys. And leave me a comment. Please don't hesitate to follow my channel and to send me a little message. I'm on Discord, YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, etc. You guys can just look for me. Bye bye.